The gospel for this week comes from John, the first chapter. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify to the light, so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light. The true light which enlightens everyone was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world came to being through him. Yet the world did not know him. He came to what was his own, and his own people did not accept him. But to all who received him, who believed in his name, he gave power to become children of God, who were born not of blood, or of the will of the flesh, or the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and lived among us. And we have seen his glory, the glory as of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. John testified to him and cried out, "This was he of whom I said, 'He who comes after me ranks ahead of me because he was before me.'" From his fullness we have all received grace upon grace. The law indeed was given through Moses. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God. It is God, the only Son, who is close to the Father's heart, who has made him known. The Gospel of the Lord. Siblings in Christ, grace and peace to you all, and happy second week of Christmas, which doesn't happen too often, mostly because the timing of Christmas Eve and Epiphany are normally so close. Where we are kind of in that time frame is that Christ has been born. The angels have come to see him and spoke and proclaimed his birth, but the Magi have not quite made it to Jesus yet. That will happen on Epiphany in a couple days. This Sunday, we heard again the prologue of John. It is a passage that many of us have heard time and time again, yet it's still one of those powerful passages for many people, including myself. In the beginning, in the very beginning, Christ was there. In creation, in the formation of all that we know, Christ was there. It's a beautiful passage and sets up the Gospel of John so well. But this prologue to the Gospel of John also sets the scene for us as we go out and live our lives. It's kind of a perfect passage for the first Sunday of the new calendar year. I don't know what the past 2 years have brought you, but I've kind of gathered that the 2 years have shown us that we need to plan for plans to change. To be ready to roll with the punches that are thrown our way. The past 2 years have been tough for everyone. There's been so much loss and grieving, and so much has felt disrupted. So how does this passage address us for this upcoming year, this new year of 2022? As I spent time with this passage, so many different things stuck out. This passage is so rich. The first verse in the beginning brings us back to Genesis and sets up the rest of the passage. Then we hear the beautiful verse, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it." Then we hear about John the Baptist, who is testifying to the light. And then we hear about us becoming children of God. There's so much to talk about, so much to dive into. But it's one of the verses towards the end that stayed with me. The Word became flesh and lived among us. The powerful image. The Word that was there at the beginning of creation, the light that was testified to, chose to be and live with us, to become flesh. It's beautiful. And in the original Greek, which was translated to lived, was probably closer to pitched a tent or dwelled in a tent. So the verse probably would be closer to, the Word became flesh and pitched a tent among us. The Word became flesh and dwelled in a tent among us. I think that translation is more telling of the great love that Christ had for us. Christ became flesh to be with us, to dwell alongside us. It's beautiful. This verse left me with a lasting image of what Christ has done and continues to do. And that is to dwell alongside us in all that life has to offer. And to be honest, I've never been camping or slept in a tent or tried to put up a tent anywhere. So this verse has always been kind of weird when translated that way, because I don't really know what it's like. But I have worked at a summer camp and slept under the stars at night and spent plenty of time around a campfire. And to me, when I hear this passage, this translation, the image of Jesus sitting around a fire and just being with others sticks with me. So the most meaningful moments in my life have been sitting around a campfire with friends, sharing stories, laughing and crying as we bore it all out to each other. The moments where we felt great and the moments where we felt terrible. Sitting around a fire in moments like that, community felt easy. Each person was listened to, was able to feel comfortable being who they are. And being underneath the stars only added to that experience. I was left in awe, seeing the beautiful creation. It is in those moments that I most clearly imagine Christ being amongst his disciples and his followers and all that he ministered to and taught. It is in those moments where I see Christ sharing his grace and life and love most clearly. But as I grew older, had more experiences, especially with my time as a summer chaplain at York Hospital, I come to realize that Christ not only dwells in a picturesque moment sitting around a fire, but in all moments. Christ is with us in those moments filled with great joy, such as weddings, birth of a child, or achieving a goal that we have worked so hard to achieve. In those moments of joy, Christ dwells among us. But Christ also dwells among us when we are lost, overcome with despair and in need of forgiveness. We have all had moments like this, where there seems like there's nothing that we can do. Maybe there are tears. Maybe there is yelling at God or anyone that comes near you. Maybe there is deafening silence that comes from feeling so overwhelmed and not knowing what to say or do. In these moments, the Word made flesh has come to dwell among us. In those moments where we are lost and don't know what to do, Christ dwells among us. We know that through the cross, Christ had saved us. Through his life and death and resurrection, we are made new and given new life. And what the cross also signifies, that Christ knows what it's like to suffer in this world, knows what it's like to cry out in pain, knows what it's like to have moments that no person ever wants to relive. This is the theology of the cross. That Christ is present with us during those moments. The moments when we are overcome with sadness. And it's essential to our faith. Christ meets us in these moments. The tent that Christ sets up in the world is not one that is guarded or set apart from the pain of the world, but is in the middle of it. In doing so, we receive the gift of grace upon grace. We receive the gift of relationship with our God. And it's a gift that we don't deserve, but is freely given. We know that we get to live with our God that shows up in the beauty and the picture-perfect moments and in the nitty-gritty, darkest parts of our lives. Those moments that we don't like to talk about. And that's what Advent and Christmas is all about. Christ is with us. The child that was born a little over a week ago is the gift that changes how we live, love, and see the world around us. We are never alone. We are called to be like John the Baptist and testify about this child. Testify to the light through our words and actions by sharing the love and grace that we have received. So as we enter into 2022, after 2 unexpected years full of the pandemic, intense political division, and a lot of collective grieving, Christmas reminds us that Christ has come. Jesus is Emmanuel. He is God with us. Each and every moment of our lives, we know this. And though it's not always easy, Christ is with us. We may not always notice it or feel it, but Christ is there. Because that is what is promised in the waters of baptism. It is what's promised through the cross. So as we begin this new year, let us cling on to Emmanuel. God is with us. The Word was made flesh. The light of Christ continues to shine. We are given the gift of the Word that dwells among us. May it keep us together as one body in Christ today, tomorrow, throughout this year, and always. Amen.